In Idaho. Let's now bring in the voice of the Cougars for Washington State. Matt Chazanow joins the program. Matt, welcome. Good to have you, man.
Great to be here. It's great to talk to you guys. Thanks for having me.
You were just saying during the break that, Lewiston has world famous fishing and there's a paper mill. There's like way more to Lewiston than I knew about.
There's probably a lot more than you knew about, unless you've been to Lewiston, Idaho before. But yeah, there's some stuff going on down there. The real show is up the grade, about 45 minutes when you get into the Pullman, you get into the wheat fields onto the Palouse.
Nice. I've hung out in McCall. I was hanging out in Island Park last week. I was born in Idaho. It's all good. We were joking too, like, why haven't we played this game more? This is somewhat regional, right? First time since 2012, with Mike Leach's first game at Washington State. Before that was 90, and then there was some holiday bowl in there and whatnot. Maybe BYU should play Washington State again. I like the idea of this. What do you think?
I love this game. Like, I think when this was on the schedule and I saw this was part of the deal, I love that it's a little later in the year. I think this, and now in the context of everything that's going on with the Washington State Cougs and even BYU, you guys, BYU started out top 25, 5-0, all this stuff, lost a couple games. It's a big game. I love this game. I love the BYU brand, right? What it means nationally and what it is coming in here, headed to the Big 12 and whatnot. It'd be awesome if we did Cougs and Cougs kind of baked in and what is to come of the non-conference schedule coming forward. Couldn't agree more.
No, if I'm being downright honest, I hate what has happened at Washington State. Like, I hate that the athletes are dealing with this and that it came to this. And that's not a political statement. It's just, I just wish that Rolovich could still be the coach and that Washington State could have their full arsenal with staff and players and the mindset. It's obviously not the case there. So what is the mindset right now, Matt, as you look at the preparation of this game? How would you explain the mindset of Washington State football given everything that has gone up off the field?
Yeah, I'd say it's focused, but the spirit of what you're saying is shared, by really all. There's no joy in the press conference that the university president Kirk Schultz and our director of athletics Pat Chun had earlier this week. It's not like what happened was a relief or was exciting or anything like that. It was a shame, and you're right. It's a shame it came to that, and there's probably not enough time that we have here in this window to really break it all down, or maybe there is, because it's actually not that complicated. In some way, it's straightforward, but. I think if you ask the guys, where are their heads at? Right around Wednesday, so like Tuesday evening and then into Wednesday, they had taken Tuesday, they had practice, but they really processed what this was, right? And then when they got to practice Wednesday, you saw a pretty focused football team. And then yesterday, you saw some of the energy come back, a lot of the joy of being able to prep for BYU. And I really think that the quality of BYU and the opponent that the BYU Cougars are has contributed to the focus. Like, hey, guys, you better get it together because this is a really good team coming in here at Pullman. This is the last Saturday game here, home game for Abe Lucas and Liam Ryan and guys, Jahad Woods, guys who have been here a long time, played a lot of Cougar football. Next home game is a Friday. Like, this is the last Cougar football Saturday, as they phrase it here on the Palouse. And so I think it means a lot to these guys, and I think this football becomes the sanctuary, becomes a chance to unify, get together, and try to move forward. And, practice and the way the team's organized now, it's less chaotic than you'd think. There's a lot of experienced football players. Some of the guys who have stepped up are super qualified. There've been a couple of outside coaches who are leaked on social media to be joining. They haven't had a ton of time to really have impact. And, I think it's really more about guys who have been here right now. And then the question becomes, something happens when something happens in the game, right? Football games don't ever go perfectly. You're going to have to throw an interception. You're going to have a fumble. You're going to go 3 and out. You're going to have a miscommunication, whatever it might be. How does that adversity go mid-game? The whole anticipation for me is, what is that sideline like when something goes wrong? Not everything goes right in the game. BYU is way too good to expect that to happen. So that's the question. What's the third quarter like? Halftime adjustments, things like that. Like, what's the second half like when BYU throws a curveball?
Matt Chazanow, the voice of the Washington State Cougars, is on BYU Sports Nation. Within the game, takeaways have played a massive role for BYU this season. BYU's 5-0 when it wins the turnover battle. It's 0-2 when it doesn't win it. Tied last week, lost it the week before. And then Washington State is 9th in the country with 15 takeaways, 7 picks, 8 fumble recoveries. So do you feel like turnovers will be a big factor in tomorrow's game?
100%. I mean, no doubt about it. I actually think the goal of the BYU defense and the vision of Jake Dickert and the Washington State Cougar defense seems to be really similar. I mean, if you just look at the numbers on paper, the way Washington State has won games is with exactly what you're looking at here, turnovers, right? I don't think they're terribly concerned with yards between the 20s. I really don't. I think it's about red zone defense, and it's about forcing turnovers. It's been really consistent, guys. They're not good at it every once in a while. Every game, in key moments, they force turnovers. They bow up and they get key picks and they force key fumbles. And Jake Dickert's coached it really well.
Washington State has won 3 games in a row and frankly have looked really impressive on offense. However, the play caller that is responsible for those 3 wins largely is now gone because of the firings that happened with Nick Rolovich and company. And the play caller that was demoted has now been promoted again. So, Matt, what kind of offense do you expect in the second go-around by the original play caller?
Yeah, so I think it's a little bit TBD on how much what he really was demoted from and what's he going to be going to. And here's what I mean when I say that. At Hawaii in 2001, 20 years ago, the quarterback was Nick Rolovich, the center was Brian Green, and the slot receiver was Craig Stutzman, okay? Brian Green's been up in the booth. And I think what they really did, and I think Craig Stutzman had a really good relationship with Jaden DeLaura, right? They went to the same high school in Hawaii. They've known each other for a long time, but Brian Smith knows him also, right? So Brian Smith's going to go down on the field. And I wonder if the communication face-to-face in person is really what they were doing when they said, hey, Craig Stutzman, you're the play caller. I mean, we'll find out, you know, and I don't know the degree to which there really was a shift in complete responsibility, probably some veto power, but sometimes when you play that game of telephone in the game, right, guy up in the booth, guy down on the field, head coach down on the field, and they're all talking, and it's maybe a busy headset, and then the quarterback comes out to talk to Craig Stutzman, and maybe there wasn't enough time on the play clock. You know, we'll see. You know, I think that Brian Smith being down there, he knows this offense. They're all the same tree. They're the same team at Hawaii, and that's what he's doing here. So he'll be down on the field, and I think that's what's really going to make a difference in this game for the Washington State Cougars offensively is what is that dynamic like?
Matt, you just broke one of our show rules. We don't talk about 2001 Hawaii. BYU was 12-0, ranked 9th.
That's right.
Went into Hawaii and gave up a still program record 72 points because Nick freaking Rolovich threw 8 touchdown passes. Yeah. We don't talk about that game, bro.
Well, listen, you know, it's not all gone. Brian Smith's still there. You know, it's part of the story. It is what it is.
Oh, man. Yeah, I hate that day. I hate that day so much. Jaden DeLaura, Pac-12 high, 15 touchdown passes. Has he been a surprise in a pleasant way this year?
No, not surprising. He's really gifted. Big recruit, gifted kid. Played last year, you know, won a game on the road in Corvallis. Obviously, super tough year. The abbreviated Pac schedule. I mean, there was a lot of heartbreak last year, guys. The Cal game was scheduled in warm-ups, was canceled in warm-ups. They never got off the bus to get to the airport to go to Stanford. They get on the bus, they load up, and then they had to pull back. So, you know, Jaden DeLaura being very good is not a shock. He knows the system. He's a gifted kid. I think actually the surprise was the slow start. The offense was really limited the first 3 games. I mean, the Cougar record could be better, right? Losing to Utah State was a gut punch to start the year. The Cougs didn't score the ball that game. The offense was sloppy in Salt Lake City. And that Utah game was a mess. That was not a well-played football game. It wasn't well played by the Utes. It was really not well played by the Cougs. And it was tight, but kind of for the wrong reasons. You know, the offense couldn't really get going. Now, Garantano was the quarterback in that game. But that was what the offense was, right? And you alluded to the play calling change. Maybe that was the difference. Maybe it was comfort. Maybe it was because Cal's struggling, at least at the time. So, you know, I think the surprise really was the slow start more than him playing better these last 3 weeks. The run and shoot hasn't been great the whole year. It's been good the last 3 weeks. It has not been great. They scored 21 in Berkeley. Generally, that doesn't get it done, right? They played a lot better against Oregon State. They threw the ball and they threw almost 400 yards, and that's really good. And they were good in key moments against Stanford. They could stay on the field, and that was great to see. The third downs were an issue. So they're getting there, right? It's like an engine that's starting to turn over, but I think they've just scratched the surface.
So let's talk about some of the key players. Obviously, Jaden DeLauro is going to have a huge factor in tomorrow's game. Max Borghi, I feel like, is old reliable. Like, he just does so many things for the Cougs in red. But who are some of the other guys that BYU fans should watch for in that explosive Washington State offense?
You got to look at the hashes, okay? It's all about outside those tackles there. So Travell Harris, all-pack receiver, statistically the best kick returner in Coug history, most attempts, most yards. Punt returner also, great athlete. Calvin Jackson Jr. had one of the best catches that's humanly possible, not hyperbole, in Berkeley, like all time. Was the ESPN #1 play. Just awesome. And so he has that kind of ability, so you've got two elite slot guys. And if you look at the gentleman blocking right before that catch there, number 88, Dejon Stribling, okay? True freshman from Hawaii, better than expected. They knew he'd be really good. He was a good recruit. He looked really good. Stribling right there, he's a really good player. I think he's been even better. I mean, the Cougs have 3 top 10 receivers in the pack, and he's one of them, and he's just a true freshman, right? Big frame, kind of a prototype of an outside receiver. So when you're talking about an offense that's going to try to throw for 400 yards, they're going to do it with those 3 guys. There's no tight end, right? So Deion McIntosh got a little banged up last game. See how he's running. And, you guys mentioned Borghi. You know Borghi's been around a long time. He's a really, really good player. So the other outside receiver spot, they haven't gotten the production out of that they're looking for. Donovan Ollie caught a touchdown that first game, but it's those 3 guys that have really shined.
They look really good. It'll be a fun matchup to watch. Well, Matt, we appreciate time. Outside of mentioning 2001 Hawaii, that was great stuff, man.
Let me regale you with a tale of 20 years ago. It was Hawaii, BYU. Great to talk to you.
Little tear coming out. Thanks, Matt.
All right.
Matt Chazanow, the voice of the Cougars with Washington State.